It's very nice to be with you here this evening. So let me start by actually telling you what or who Good Energy is. And actually, we've been around for a while. Good Energy was one of the original challenger brands as the UK's energy supply market deregulated towards the end of the 1990s. And that challenge came in the form of a commitment towards developing renewable generation. And originally, actually, the company took money from its customers and from investors to repower the UK's first wind farm, which is in Delabole in North Cornwall, for people who are familiar with that part of the world, which is certainly pretty windy. But actually, things have moved on considerably since then. And what we do now is on this slide. So first off, we are an energy supplier, but we are a differentiated energy supplier. So we guarantee to our electricity customers, be they homes or businesses, that their supply is 100% covered by renewable generation over the course of the year. And in fact, for most half-hour slots on the grid, that supply is genuinely renewable. It appeals particularly to green-minded consumers and companies who want to sort of demonstrate and document their own purpose. And that power comes, as you heard in the intro there, from our relationships with over 2,000 small-sized generators across the UK, be they in wind or anaerobic digestion or solar or water. And that gives us a strong position with which to grow a supply business. In many ways, we are better known for our customers who are the other way around, to whom we pay money. So we are one of the UK's largest players in the world of microgeneration. Literally, I mean solar panels on homes, on people's rooftops or on rooftops of businesses. So we are one of the largest players, with the largest voluntary player in what's called the feed-in tariff scheme, which is the UK's original subsidy regime for people with solar panels on the rooftop. And we are growing alongside that a capability to install green energy technologies to help consumers make the energy transition. And our other play in terms of the energy transition, and obviously one that's closely related to the green-minded microgenerator, is in electric vehicles. We are the largest investor behind ZapMap, which is the UK's leading app for EV drivers that is the cure for range anxiety. So, why do these? Well, let's start with a vision. This is not a great vision slide, really, but it has important data. You're an investor audience, you need to know this. I think we're a good investment because the whole nature of our relationship with our energy company is going to be transformed over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And this is one aspect of it, which is that we've only just begun the process of decentralising our energy generation, so installing solar on any sort of mass scale, and electrifying our heating, and that is the only route the UK has to meeting anywhere near its climate goals. Now, mercifully, there is a lot of data available on this in this market. And in fact, the graph shows you installation numbers for both solar in yellow and heat pumps in blue. And as you can see, there has been growth, particularly in solar installation in the last few years. And we're expecting the solar market to approach about a 5 billion annual value by the end of the decade, and the heat pump market to go from somewhere in the region of about 35,000 air-sourced heat pumps installed in the UK last year to 500, 600,000 installations per year if the country is to meet its climate goals. So these are structural growth markets. What does it mean for a consumer? Well, here is an idealised home, but it helps us understand how Good Energy sees the future. So let's start with the car that's in the garage. It's already been the fastest growing category of new car ownership in the UK for a few years now. If you have an electric vehicle, you need us because you need ZapMap to tell you where to charge when you're on the road. You are 7 times more likely to want to install solar panels. A pretty obvious motivation that you suddenly become a much heavier user of power. So we can install solar and we can help you run that solar system, buy your energy from you when you've already got it in. And the next stages of the energy transition then flow from there. So the obvious next stage, and for a lot of people doing a major project comes alongside it, is moving towards an air-sourced heat pump. We are an installer and a high-quality installer of heat pumps. And then finally, it is all wrapped up with the idea that your relationship with your supplier needs to be a much more flexible one. Technology needs to tell you when to use the power that's coming from your roof, when to store it, when to sell it back to the grid, when to put it into your car. And these are all propositions that are nascent now, will be coming on stream over the course of the next few years. And that is, I think, important for the UK's energy transition. It's important for our consumers, and it helps make us a stronger and more resilient business as well. So the whole business of supply and generation, which is what we were in, has its downfalls. We've seen that in the last couple of years. And it's also a sort of single source of revenue for the company. As soon as you move into installation and then helping people run the green technology in their homes, then you have a lot more opportunity to access recurring streams of revenue, as well as the money that comes in from supply as well. So we are trying to build a business that moves from its roots in generation and supply into offering ongoing services to customers making the energy transition. So if that's the vision thing, let's get into a bit more detail here about each of those aspects. So first off, supply, on which I'm going to use one slide. We are one of only 3 energy suppliers in the UK derogated by Ofgem from the price cap regime. And we have that status because Ofgem accepts that our proposition is genuinely different and that we help consumers to support small-scale renewable generation because of the way we buy power. So that appeals to businesses, it appeals to green-minded customers, but all of that is meaningless if your business isn't resilient in the first place. So that first line is important. We have just been through an energy crisis which saw 60% of the energy supply businesses in the UK fail in a couple of months in late 2021. Frankly, that said quite a lot about regulatory and policy failure in the UK in terms of the energy market, but also said quite a lot about the companies that made their way through it, of which we were one. And our business model is resilient because if we take on any sort of large-scale customer, we immediately back that off against the PPAs we were talking about, those long-term commitments, so we know we have the power bought. We hedge conservatively and far ahead of the current point in time, so we always go into a season, if not the next season, fully hedged. And again, the PPA relationships mean that we have a collateral-free line, effectively, into buying the power we need. So we can fix our energy costs on the wholesale market, and actually we have more flexibility than most suppliers in the retail market, certainly because of the derogation. So that's the theory, and of course the practice is the stress test we've just come through. So we came through the energy crisis where many of our competitors, even well-known ones like Bulb, failed. Good Energy is in a very different position, and we aspire to build a sustainably profitable energy supply business with this very different proposition. Well, don't just trust me for that. We are recognised as doing so. We're the only supplier with all of our tariffs considered to be on the gold standard for renewables by Uswitched. We are one of only 2 suppliers in the UK with a 5-star rating on Trustpilot, and for 3 years running we have been accorded by Which the title of the leading eco-energy company in the UK. And that reach doesn't just affect domestic consumers. We're equally active in the business market. We supply people like PricewaterhouseCoopers, for whom it's very important to be able to demonstrate and document their carbon footprint. And we're the only company who can tell these larger users on a half-hourly basis how their energy supply is being matched against renewables. So that is our differentiated supply position. We think our growth actually comes much more from services. And so we have been investing behind this growth. So, what do we do? Well, we are the go-to players in the UK for solar power. And how do we do that? Well, we will install your panels. So we have bought 2 high-quality installers, which means we can cover the south of England for the installation of solar on domestic and commercial rooftops. We then help you once you've got the product. So for the customers who already have solar, they're usually part of the feed-in tariff scheme. We're one of the leading players there. We're the only innovator in that market. We're the only people, for example, who will pay you on actually what you generate as opposed to a deemed or assumed amount, which is how the scheme originally worked. And we're a very active player for customers who've missed out on that scheme. The scheme closed in 2019 with our solar savings rate. So again, we are offering to buy power from customers at more than the norm because we are better at trading and shaping that power within our overall position. So we're the go-to player for solar, and we have bolstered that position by acquiring companies who fit in with the type of customers we have. We tend to serve a slightly more rural, slightly more affluent audience, and the businesses we've bought, which are the ones in yellow in this plot, tend to install larger system sizes at a higher cost than the market overall. And that is just fine. We are going to leave chasing down the cost curve to other people. We're the people who will turn up at your house with our own workforce do a high quality job, offer you a service to then run the solar afterwards, and there is a very significant targetable market for us in that area. And the same applies really to our heat pump proposition. Again, there is an active market in the UK trying to drive down the cost, really see the cost advantages. We're leaving that to other people. We think there is a position for us, again, within Good Energy's typical target customers, offering a high quality installation service. We spend a lot of time in the pre-design or the design phase, making sure that the heat pump we're installing is large enough. We do full system jobs, so we don't just install a heat pump and then walk away. On average, we change 4 radiators in the home. So we're quoting for a full kind of transition of the home into heating through air sourced heat pumps. And we monitor afterwards. So we're the only player who will then monitor the performance of your heat pump, which means that we can stand by the claim, which we've verified with the university study we're working with, that our heat pumps are pretty much 4 times more efficient than gas boilers in terms of the way they convert energy into heat. So solar and heat, services to help you use it, green supply, and the last element in what we do is then helping people electrify their transportation, which, along arguably with domestic and commercial energy use, is the key thing the UK needs to do to hit its carbon reduction targets. And how do we do that? Well, it's mostly through ZapMap, which if you drive an EV, you may well be familiar with. It is used by about 80% of the UK's electric vehicle drivers, and effectively it is a data app. What it does is take data from the charge point operators, from people on the road, from users contributing to the community, cleans and verifies that data, and then makes it available either through an app or through an API, which is ZapMap Spark, so allowing other people to build their product on the data, or it sells that data to people who are active in the industry. Everyone from the Department of Vehicle Licensing to all the charge point operators buy data from ZapMap. The app itself is one which is largely free to use. It maintains their penetration in the market, but it has a subscription offer, and you can also pay for your charging on about 25% of the UK's rapid chargers through it, which gives it further revenue streams. And the types of companies who are building products on ZapMap Spark are the likes of FleetCor, the fuel card fleet operator, and deals have just been signed with a parking app as well. So that is what ZapMap does. Here are some numbers. So it is, as I said, it's got about 1.4 million downloads at the moment, plays about 1.6 million cars on the road in the UK, with some claim to be some sort of battery power. The registered user base, 780,000. And there again, in those slides, you can see the sort of core functionality here. The idea being you can start your journey in London and drive to Edinburgh, and ZapMap will tell you where you should stop to charge your particular car, how you can pay, enable you to pay. And the map, whilst it's certainly most developed in the UK, is now becoming international. That journey from London to Edinburgh could equally be London to Lyon, and quite shortly we'll be rolling out in the US as well. So ZapMap, I think, an important asset to the electrification of transport in the UK, and one we then back up with some innovative electric vehicle tariffs which bundle in ZapMap as well, because again, EV drivers are very likely to be target customers for Good Energy. So that's what we do, and we had our financial results a few weeks ago, so I can give you an up-to-date position financial picture. That is the P&L, which is a lot of numbers, and I won't walk through. The key thing to focus on is actually, for the last couple of years, we've been quite a big business. We're at a turnover of about £250 million. That is a function of the price of energy. So we've all felt that as consumers. In fact, that revenue line and the cost of sales line will move up and down as the wholesale cost of power changes. So we're not particularly focused on that. More we can concentrate on the operating profit line. And in 2023, happily, we saw a restoration of our profitability really after the impact of the energy crisis. You can see that in the operating profit figure of 7.1 million there. Visualization is probably an easy way of looking at it. So this is how we walked across from 2022 into 23. So 22 actually had a one-off gain from ZapMap raising some money in the market, and that's reflected through the P&L. So we were almost saying to people, look, ignore that 9.2, start at 1.4. That carried quite a lot of the cost of the energy crisis in it. And what we've seen really is whilst people are using less power, or certainly using less gas over the course of the last few years, there's been a recovery in terms of pricing. Our energy is bought more cheaply, we're charging more for it, and whilst there have been some swings in terms of investment in the services side, we've returned to a more normalised level of profitability over the course of the last year. For a small company, for an AIM-listed company, profit and loss, of course, isn't everything. We should look at the balance sheet. And the key message on our balance sheet is probably at the bottom there, which is that we finished last year with over 41 million pounds of cash and little to no net debt. That's a very deliberate position. We sold our generating assets so that we could remove the debt that was attached to them and free up some capital for the investments I've been talking about, but also to put the company in a strong cash position. I wouldn't quite run away with a 40 million pound figure. Well, the notes are very important here. Some of that belongs to our customers. We're very mindful of that. It's the deposits, that is the money you keep from direct debits, and it will run down. But nonetheless, we are in a strong cash position. We have more than enough cash to withstand any further shocks in the energy market and to continue to invest behind our services proposition. So, in summary, why think about good energy, either as consumers or as investors? We are a resilient business in a marketplace that lacked for resilience, but we've shown, I think, that we know what we're doing in terms of our team and that our business model is a resilient one. It's general election call day, so this line I've given a few times, but ideally positioned to benefit from UK policy drivers. It is likely that a Labour government will have a greener agenda than the current one does. It is likely that they will begin to roll in again some of the deadlines for the end of oil-fired boilers, gas central heating boilers going into new builds, internal combustion engine cars. All of these things will be helpful to good energy. As you've heard, we have a supply sort of underpin, but actually we have growth and investment on the services side, which I think are high growth markets. We're very much only at the start of the energy transition in the UK, which we'll all feel as consumers. We are, some of us, a few years off deciding whether the energy from our rooftop is going to go into our car whilst it sits on the drive or be used in the home, but it will be the reality for a large number of UK homes. And for those investors who like to see an element of a dividend, we have a very clear policy on this, where we are investing for growth and do not pay much of a dividend, but we do pay a small dividend, which has been rising over the last couple of years for those for whom that's important. And that, I think, is everything I wish to say.
Oh, thank you, Nigel.